Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome. I'm Solid Blue Sister, and welcome to my turn to talk. So today we are going to be discussing white students being recruited at historically Black colleges and universities, HBCUs. And I have mixed feelings on this particular topic. And I'm also going to share some input from white students and why they chose to go to a historically Black college or university. So historically, Black colleges were actually founded in the early 19th century, like around, I do believe it was like around 1840, 1847, whatever. Yes, we were smart too. You know, we wanted to learn to read, write, and move on to higher education. You know, we were not all on Massa's plantation, not knowing how to read and write. But having said that, the history of HBCUs is one where African Americans took pride. They took pride in the fact that because we were shut out of education, we were shut out of, you know, schools, you know, we could not go to and were not accepted at white schools. And during slavery, unless you were in the North, or even if you went to Canada, you know, Black people were not allowed to learn. It was against the law. So post-slavery, you know, white people still wanted to keep us down because if you're not educated, and I don't mean to say that if you don't have a college degree, then you're ignorant, but if you're not educated in the sense of just not knowing how to read and write, just basic skills to learn, you know, to know how to read and write, you're missing out on a lot. You're relying on other people to give you information that, you know, you would be able to obtain yourself. And how do you know that information that they're giving you is correct? Case in point, during slavery, you had a lot of slave owners who had preachers come around, and on Sunday morning, they would open the Bible, and these preachers would say things like, you know, God wanted all Black people to be slaves, you know, you're here to serve the white man. The white man is superior. This is in the Bible. This is what God says. Okay, so maybe you had some slaves that believe that. Maybe you didn't. Nat Turner didn't, you know, and he took it to the next level. But that's another show. But unless you have the ability to get information on your own, you're never going to be sure if what someone is telling you is correct. And even though people can write, you know, I can write a book and fill it with lies, it doesn't make it true. But that's where you use your intelligence and your ability to read, to go and search and discover and educate yourself further to see if what I wrote in this book is true. And if you know how to read and write, just basic knowledge of knowing how to read and write, you're able to carry on a conversation with people. You're able to, you know, engage people, you know, if they're, you know, talking about, civics, or what's going on in society, what's going on in the world, or just what's going on in your own neighborhood down the block. You have to be able to engage people. And knowing how to read and write also includes knowing how to speak. That's all part of it. So having said that, African Americans knew that they had to get their own schools. We had to, educate our own people. However way we could, we had to educate our own people. And we were thriving. We were starving for education. We wanted it. And you have a lot of, again, I've said before, we are not stupid people. African Americans and Black people, period, no matter where you come from, we are not stupid people. We are highly intelligent and we are highly educated people. Unfortunately, society, the media, and white people have pushed this agenda for centuries, these stereotypes that have caught on and have stayed on. There's a high amount of crime, we have grew up in single family homes. I have someone, that I talk to who is relentless on wanting to educate me about Black people, and this person's white, about Black people growing up in single family homes. And it's like, I'm sorry, I can debunk that myth over and over and over and over again. That's just not true. Do we grow up in single family homes? Some of us do, but the majority of us do not. And again, it's that statistical stigma that has been perpetuated. So it is up to us to make sure that we stay educated. So on that note, before I start, I am going to ask my one participant if she wants to add anything before I start. Uh-oh, sorry about that. Wait, hold on for a second. Okay, Shy Lady, did you want to add anything before I keep going?
No, I was listening to your introduction, and I will add just, when you start getting into the thick of it.
Okay. Well, I am going to share a video. I'm not going to play the whole thing. It is long. I'm only going to play just a little bit of it, just to get us started on the history of Black college and universities. So let me share my screen here. Here we go. Okay, we're going to start here.
Before the Civil War, the first historical Black colleges were found in Pennsylvania and Ohio. Majority of the higher learning education institutes were predominantly white, who disqualified or limited African Americans to enroll. A century after the end of slavery, most of these colleges, especially in the southern states, regularly employed quotas to limit admissions of Blacks. During Reconstruction, the Freedmen's Bureau pushed Congress to provide practical aid to 4 million newly freed African Americans in their transition from slavery to freedom. Its greatest accomplishments were in the education. More than 1,000 Black schools were built and over $400,000 spent to establish teacher training institutions. In this video, we will explore our most prestigious historical Black colleges and their origins. In 1837, the first HBCU was founded in Cheney, Pennsylvania. Cheney University, built on a land donated by the Cheney family. The university was founded as the African Institute in February 1837 and renamed the Institute of Colored Youth in April of that same year. The Institute was founded by Richard Humphreys, a Quaker philanthropist who donated $10,000, which was 1/10 of his estate to design and establish a school to educate people of African descent and prepare them as teachers. Up until 1914, Cheney did not award degrees. Soon after, it adopted the curriculum of a normal school. Cheney is the oldest African-American institute of higher learning. In 1851, the University of the District of Columbia was established in Washington, D.C. It was known as the Normal School for Colored Girls, with the purpose to educate African-American women. Founded by Matrilla Minor, an educator and abolitionist, the school grew due to mergers and consolidation into the only public university in Washington, D.C. Later in 1879, the Normal School for Colored Girls was then known as Minor Normal School. The Washington Normal School was established in 1873 for girls and was renamed the Wilson Normal School in 1913. In 1929, the United States Congress made both schools four-year teacher colleges and designated Minor Teachers College for African Americans and Wilson's Teachers College for whites. In 1955, after the Brown versus Board of Education, the two schools merged into the District of Columbia Teachers College. In 1854, John Miller Dickey, a Presbyterian minister, and his wife, Sarah Creason, a Quaker, founded Ashman Institute. Located in Hensonville, Pennsylvania, they named the school after a religious leader and social reformer, Jehudi Ashman. It was founded for the education of African Americans who had few opportunities for higher learning. John Dickey was the first president of the college, and he encouraged his first students and brother to support the establishments.
Okay, I want to stop this for a moment, because here we have here we have, 1851, slavery, was not going to end for about another 14 years. So even here you see that there were Black people who wanted to learn, had the opportunity to learn, and you had white people who were willing to help them, get the education that that they were striving for. So once again, I say, we are not stupid people. We have always wanted to be educated. And I guess, I'm going to fast forward to the 21st century, last part of the last 50 years or 60 years of I'll say the last 50 years of the 20th century. It's kind of disappointing to know that you have African Americans who either don't have the opportunity and the resources to learn, just basic knowledge, just elementary school, high school. They don't have, the opportunity to go to good schools, and you also have African Americans who don't take it seriously or think it's not important. And one thing that, my mom was a teacher. And as I've said before, my sister and I, we went to private school, white people. And one thing that my mother always said, especially if we brought home a bad grade, as long as there's one white person in that room, you're going to learn, especially if you have a white teacher, because that white teacher is going to make sure that that Black person or that white student learns. So you better sit there and you better pay attention. And my sophomore year of high school, I will never forget this. My first semester, you have 4 quarters. My first semester, my sophomore year, 2 semesters in a row, I brought home C's and D's. My mother was not having it. My father was a little easier, whatever, but even he wasn't having it. He was the one that you go to if you didn't want to really get in trouble. And my mother told me, and Charlady, you may know, you may remember the school. My mother told me that if I did not bring my grades up the third quarter of my sophomore year, if I did not bring home A's and B's, she was going to send me to the worst high school in Chicago. And at that time, the worst high school was a school called Marshall. It was way on the north side, northwest side. I mean, we're talking and she told me, and you're taking the bus, which meant that I literally, if school started at 8 o'clock, I literally would have had to leave my house at 6 or 5:30 to get there on time. And my mother was not kidding. I knew she was not kidding. I knew she was serious. And she says, knowing you with your mouth, you'll probably get beat up. You know, she told me all these things, you know, you're going to get pushed around, you know, she told me all these horror things that I knew that I would probably get beat up, pushed around. You know, I'd be the one that's in the girls' locker room every day, getting wedgied or whatever. I knew this, whatever. And I knew my mother was serious. I knew she was serious. And she says that I can guarantee you the education that you get at Marshall is not like what you're getting where you're going now. My second semester, third quarter, I brought home A's and B's, was not a C in the bunch. And, I had biology, and biology was not my subject. And I'm telling you, I made sure that by hook or by crook, it was so hard, but I got a B. And my mother, I was so happy. My mother got my grades. At that time, they were mailing the grades home. So you couldn't, change your grades and stuff. They mailed to the parents of, whatever, and they sealed it and what have you. And my mother opened up the grades, and she didn't say, "Oh, congratulations, good job." She was like, "This is what is expected of you. This is your job to go to school and get an education." That was all she said. And my fourth quarter, I did the same thing, and I never walked in my house again. I came in with C's, but I never came in with D's, and if I came in with an F, whatever. My mother would have moved me out the house next to Marshall, and I would have been living there. But anyway, I say all that to say that, when you have an opportunity to learn, when you have the opportunity to be in a room, especially if you have a good teacher, you have a teacher that is trying to teach whatever, and the rest, everybody else in the classes, making noise, whatever, and they're not paying attention. If it means that you have to ask that teacher, can I move my desk up here in the corner where I can hear you, and it's just the two of you guys, talking, whatever. Take advantage of the education that is out there. Take advantage of the things that you can learn, because it is so important. If you're not going to get a college degree or go on to university, that's fine. But at least graduate high school. At least graduate with a high school diploma, knowing that I did this, I have this education, this piece of paper, it means something. And then whatever else you want to do, if you want to go into a trade, or if you do want to go on and further your education, you can. But education is so incredibly important. Now, does anybody want to say anything before I move on? Anybody? All right. Okay, so now I am going to share. Oh, let's see, hold on, guys. I do believe all right, hold on. I'm going to stop this for a moment, and I'm going to pull this up over here. Give me one moment. I do not mean to close out my entire window. All right, here we go. Okay. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so let me go back and. Okay, I see what I did here. Hold on 1 second. There we go. All right.
HBCUs are only for Black students. Racially divisive.
Ghetto.
Run down.
Lower class.
All the students there are Black. Irrelevant.
My parents were kind of like nervous.
People said I wouldn't fit in.
We have never discriminated against anyone who wanted to come to get an education.
Does historically Black mean exclusively Black?
No, it's a statement of history and not of current execution. They were created to educate the children and descendants of freed slaves to produce teachers, preachers, and farmers. In the 40s and 50s, there's still a navigable space of segregation, but you're starting to see the formation of the Black middle class. Everything we know to be Black wealth, Black political capital, Black cultural influence, affirmative visualizations of Blackness in America started at our campuses.
But what if you're an HBCU student and not Black?
A long and arduous journey it has been in pursuit of excellence and achievement.
In 2008, Josh Packwood became valedictorian of one of the most iconic HBCUs, Morehouse College.
People are still shocked that I went to Morehouse, but even more so that white people are allowed to attend. For me, being the one or one of few was actually a very key part of why I wanted that experience, because I just felt like that would be so transformative in how I would think.
Josh spent most of his time at Morehouse without ever seeing another white face on campus. That experience is something of being the only that people of color often feel.
At the end of the day, I was born a white male in America. I come from the most privileged class on the planet. Coming into this environment, I still held my tongue probably more than I would have if I was not a minority. It did kind of force me to be more of a listener at times.
Today, 11% of HBCU students are white, and there's a growing number of Latino, Asian, and international students.
Okay, I'm going to stop it there. Does anybody want to say anything before I start going?
I have a question. Maybe you can't answer.
I knew you would.
But listening to that particular person, I don't know anything about him, but I wonder, why would he go there? And two, was it just to prove a point, take a spot from a Black person who could have received the scholarship to be there? And if you going to this university was to impact the lives of Black people, my question is, what is he doing now? Is he helping Black people for the spot that he took that could have gone to a Black student? That's my question. What is he doing now?
Okay, let me play the other side, okay? Does it matter if he's doing anything now to help Black people? Because could you use the same argument and say, well, I graduated from Morehouse and I'm Black. Now I'm an accountant working, in New York City for a very, prosperous, white law firm or something. I'm doing nothing to give back, to my own people. So is it the same thing?
The thing about white people is that he could have gone to any school in America. And the fact that he took a spot from a Black school, let's talk about standardized tests. A lot of these Black schools, and I've been doing my homework because I have a child who is going to be a senior in high school in the fall. And he's been getting letters from Harvard, University of Chicago, based on the scores that he took for his SAT. I believe his last score was 1260, I believe. And I started looking at HBCU schools, and a lot of these schools say that if you have, if you are, I don't recall it saying if you're a Black or minority, but the requirements are that I believe, like I looked at Hampton, Florida A&M, and maybe Prairie View A&M, and
Mhm.
I don't remember what some of their scores were, but I do recall seeing 1260, 1300 with some of these schools, and you can get a full ride. Full ride meaning tuition paid for and your room and board.
Mhm.
And a lot of the predominantly white schools have a much higher SAT requirement. I even seen some schools require, even national merits require, just to get a scholarship, tuition paid for. You I'm not sure if it's the University of Texas, it may be Baylor, one of these schools in Texas, but it states that you have to be a national merit for them to even offer you tuition. As far as room and board, you're on your own. And they have raised the bar so high, and these standardized tests are usually not geared toward Black American students, which is one of the reasons why a lot of the Black students do go to HBCUs, because those tests are not equitable for us. And a lot of these HBCUs, when you do score a certain score, you are able to get tuition reimbursement and not reimbursement, but a free education. Basically, white institutions are not offering that. Their SAT and ACT scores are much higher. They're not offering that. So for a lot of Black students, because these standardized tests are usually very unfair, they go to HBCUs. And for a white student to take that spot from a Black student, and maybe this white student scored higher, but to take that spot from a Black student who who meets the requirement is not fair. It's just not fair, because the white student can go to any school, but the Black student, because of the SAT scores, are typically not accepted into white universities. And definitely with a score like that, they're not going to be given a scholarship for tuition or for room and board. So I think it's wrong. I asked my daughter, who is 24 and graduated from a predominantly white institution, university. And I asked her, what did she think about white students going to HBCUs? And this was her quote: "I think it's disgusting." I said, "Oh, why do you feel that way?" And she said, "Because they're taking away scholarships that could go to Black kids. That's why I think it's disgusting." And so I want to not take up all the time and let you comment after that.
No, you know, you know, because I know you, and because I know that, you have exceptional kids and your daughter is exceptional, and the fact that, all of your kids are just super smart. Whenever we have, whenever we're talking about things like this, you always make really, really good points. But I am going to ask my other silent friend if she would like to say something, because we have these conversations between the two of us all the time when we're just on the phone, whatever. And I would like to know, what do you think? I mean, if you could, I know you like to listen, whatever, but would you like to comment and put in a doo-wop? Wait, hold on. Let me. There you go.
Truthfully, I don't have a doo-wop, but I do enjoy listening to you and your young lady friend. And you both are just so interesting to me. And I just don't really have anything to say. I mean, I didn't go to college, and I do know a lot of kids that grew up with my son. I mean, my son didn't go to college, but I do know a lot of kids that he played with and hung out with, and they were his best friends. They did go to great schools like Stanford and, Harvard. A lot of his friends graduated from really prestige schools. And
So do
I
do
just
you
really,
think that,
really-
but do you think what
I
you-
agree. I agree that the white students are taking away from the
okay,
black students that, you know, are missing out on a scholarship to attend like Morehouse or any of the other black colleges.
now would you also attribute the same thing to Hispanic students also wanting to go to black colleges?
No, I wouldn't with Hispanic kids. I mean, to me, they would be acceptable to me to attend, black colleges, but I don't think they'd be taking away because I see them on the same level as us.
Now, see, that's where I would have to disagree because I
Disagree?
don't think
Yeah.
Hispanics are on the same level as us. I think that we're considered a level down.
Okay.
Especially
Yeah.
when the dreamers come, whatever,
Yes, I
you know,
agree
they
with you.
tend to get more benefits than our own kids who do have
Absolutely.
the scores, and what have you.
Yeah.
So
I agree with you
yeah,
in that sense. You're right.
okay,
100% right. They do get a lot more, the dreamers.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so Charlene, let me ask you the same question. Do you think that Hispanics should be able to go to these schools? Wait, let me. There we go. If you're talking, I cannot hear you. There we go.
I can hear you.
Okay, so do you think that Hispanics should also not go to black colleges, or do you think that they should?
I'm going to have to agree with my daughter. I asked her the same thing before the podcast, and she said, absolutely not. They're not black. And most of the time, they tend to not support our causes. They tend to not, even with the things that are going right now, with a lot of the young black men who've been gunned down, unarmed men who did not resist arrest. A lot of times they don't support our causes. And those scholarships should go to black students. And oftentimes in the work world, Hispanic people are not discriminated against. I've seen Hispanic people that don't look like your typical Hispanic. They're considered white Hispanic. They won't have any problems typically in corporate America because they look white.
Right,
They're not a threat.
right.
So for that reason, I would say no.
Okay, okay. Well,
The only exception that I would have in that sense, if it was a black Latino, a Latino that looked black, therefore, when applying for positions in the company, they are typically going to look at the outside instead of what's the inside. So there's no doubt when a person walks into a room, if they have very brown skin or features, nose, lips, like that of a Black American and kinky hair, that people are going to see that first. That's what you see first on the outside. So typically Asians and white Hispanics, they don't have problems moving up in corporate America. It's Blacks that have problems moving up in corporate America and hitting that glass ceiling.
Okay, so let me throw this out here before I keep playing this one piece. I was talking to someone yesterday, and she basically feels the exact same way you do. Is like I was having the conversation with you, and again, I'm playing both sides here. What do you say about schools like your Morehouses who do not get the funding that their previous students, who went there or whatever, they're not getting the funding like the Yales and the Princetons and the Harvards and what have you, and because, they may have financial problems or something, they have to start recruiting white students or Hispanic students. What do you say to that?
I know it's a struggle for them, but at the same time, we have, as Black people, we have issues with supporting the institutions that we come from. And I think some of the problem could be, and I don't have I've read some things, and I've heard some people who actually went to HBCUs, people who actually graduated, who said that they've always had problems financially because they're not managing the money correctly. Some people are getting, people in administration are reaping more of the benefits than need be. And there's a situation also where sometimes the graduates are not giving back to those HBCUs. They're not supporting the alumni. So I think that's part of the problem as well, as far as not being able to have the funding. And we can look at this whole education thing, and I've been reading articles about Blacks with advanced degrees, and I read a lot of information, and I find it really sad that even today, with so many Blacks who have come from Morehouse, not Morehouse, so many Blacks who have come from Harvard with MBAs and Wharton and Stanford, the University of Chicago, and we still don't have any Black people as CEOs, except I think maybe one. Right now, I can't think of who. I know we have one. I believe it's over Lowe's. I could be wrong. I know recently we had our only Black woman who was at Xerox, and she's since retired. And then we had a Black man from American Express that was the CEO. But we have so many educated Blacks from Ivy League schools, and we still can't get in the C-suite, and we can't make the money that a lot of our lesser educated white people are sitting in.
Well, but that's been a problem, across the board. I was talking about a couple of days ago, I was talking about, we worked at the same telecommunications company, and how the majority of us were educated with degrees and the majority of the white people weren't.
Mm-hmm.
And they were making all this money, and here we are, doing the work, knowing what we're talking about, knowing, what a circuit is and, what have you, knowing how a telephone works. And, they didn't know, so, again, so, and then this brings me, getting a little bit off subject, but you're bringing this up. This is why I think is laughable that, Tucker Carlson is spouting this propaganda that, oh, white men are going to be extinct by 2050, really considering that, white people have been in control of this country and of this world for how long? And all of a sudden in 30 years, you're going to be extinct. Come on. And why are, how come there are no, Black people who are in charge of major networks, you know, whatever. So,
Yeah.
I mean, you bring up a good point. So I'm going to bring up this point. You look at our vice president. Do you think she's Black?
I would say no.
Okay. No, I mean, it's interesting that you say that because I've thought that too. You know, it's like she's the first, yes, her father was Black, her mother was Indian. But you know, is she Black?
No, she's not Black.
You
She's
know,
not
so
Black.
so you know, it's like I kind of go back and forth on that. I mean, I'm happy, you know, that she's there, what have you. You know, since I've, you know, been in California, I supported her for Attorney General. I remember the nasty campaign that she had to go through just become the Attorney General, then the same nasty campaign she had to go through to become, you know, senator, whatever. She's gone through a lot, and she had a lot of racial slurs, you know, thrown at her, whatever, and she always came out on top, you know. But I would like to see more Black people in positions, you know, of power. But at the same time, I think we're also lacking in supporting our own. You know, when Spike Lee first came out with She's Gotta Have It, he went to Bill Cosby. He knocked on Bill Cosby's door. He said, hey, you know, I'm trying to make this movie. I know people don't know who I am, you know, whatever. Can you help me? Oh, well, no, I don't know. I don't want to give any money, no. And even though, you know, Oprah was, you know, she wasn't where she is now, he still knocked on her door. He knocked on a lot of Black, you know, affluent people, not only in Hollywood, but also, you know, in the financial world, who turned him down. You know, and the major studios didn't want to back him. So he had to scramble and scrape his money together. And that's why, you know, She's Gotta Have It is shot mostly in black and white and is low budget and shot in somebody's apartment. You know, but more power to him, because look at where he is now. But again, it's like, why are we not supporting our own? But which again leads me to, if the alumni are not going to give back, if you're graduating from these schools and you're not going to give back and reach down a hand, you know, to help, you know, someone else, you know, come up, and, you know, if the biology lab is falling apart or whatever and it needs to be redone, or, you know, the math, you know, whatever, it needs to be redone, you know, whatever, or the dorm, and you're not helping, are they wrong again having to go to outside to white students to get help in terms of tuition, in order to have enough people where, you know, where my tuition doesn't have to increase because they can't afford to keep the lights on? So what do you do?
I don't know if I mean, these historically Black colleges have been around, some for almost 200 years, and I don't believe that they should have to resort to that in order to keep the lights on, because back in the day they weren't getting anything from white students. They weren't benefiting from any white students being there. Why do they have to benefit from it now?
Okay,
So
and I say, okay, again, I'm playing both sides. I'm just trying to, you know, just see both sides here. So, and I also wish, you know, I had a white person here who can also, you know, put in their input. But could you say that times have changed? You know, how things were back in the 1800s and early 1900s. Just, I'm not talking about in terms of social, how society was there. I'm talking about just in terms of finances, that the things that are needed now are more today, more so than it would have been 100 years ago, 150 years ago.
probably, but I want to say this as well. I know some people who went to historically Black colleges, my age and some a little bit younger. And what I hear from a lot of them who were not blessed enough to get a full ride, they have a lot of debt from school. They have a lot of debt. They had a lot of debt coming out, and trying to climb the corporate ladder when you're being denied for positions that you're most of the time are overqualified for. It's like a double-edged sword. On the one hand, you got a lot of these Black kids who didn't get a full ride. Some of them are going to HBCUs, the Spelmans and the Hampton universities. These schools are pretty expensive for tuition, room and board. These are not cheap schools equivalent to the tuition for state schools. A lot of times they're even more. And when you're coming out with debt because you weren't able to get a full ride at a Spelman, and you get your degree and you go into corporate America and you're not able to climb that ladder in a lot of cases because you are Black. And that really puts I know some of these people at a disadvantage for maybe wanting to give more. But when you come out with a bunch of debt, like I said, the people that are getting full rides at these colleges, I think they're in the minority. I don't think it's a big,
They are.
huge
I don't
number.
no, I don't think that is a huge number.
Mhm.
Okay, so
And so,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, I just want to say that I think in some cases that people may want to give more, but a lot of even some of the white students are coming out with a lot of debt as well. But I know lots of Black people who've come out of college with lots of debt because they didn't get a full ride, and it's hard to give back when you got that huge debt over your head, and you want to give back, or you're trying to climb the corporate ladder, and you're constantly getting denied positions. I was one of them myself. So, and I've
Well,
always been a hard worker.
also one of the problems, you want to talk about college debt. One of the problems that we have is when I was in school, I came out, I was the class of, when I graduated from college, I'm dating myself, I was the class of 84, and at that time, when you went to school and you got financial aid, we had those Pell Grants. Remember the Pell Grants?
Yep.
And you could not get more than either 2,500 or 5,000. That was the cutoff.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't have all these other places like Sally Mae and everything here, come and, do this, whatever. But in terms of a government grant, you could only go so far, and that was all you could get. So when you got out of school, you may have had debt, but your debt would have been maybe like $10,000-$20,000, and that was it. Now you're coming out, and because of the grants and the tiers levels that they raised them to, and all these other private places where you can go and get these grants, you are coming out with 200, 300. I mean, I know somebody who went to school to be a doctor, and they've been a doctor for 20 years. They're still paying off a $500,000 debt because they went to medical school and they kept going. And now, they're a surgeon, whatever, which is great. But what's the use of having this, I'm a surgeon, I'm making all this money, but all this money is going to pay off the debt that I went to school 30 years ago.
Absolutely.
So that's another issue. But no, you've raised some points. And I guess from this one white guy, and I'm gonna start playing this again because there's some more that I want you to hear from this particular tape, is when he said that he comes from the most privileged class, and he was talking about being white. So again, did he go to that school because he was able, because maybe his test scores were not that great, and he was able, to get lower tuition or get scholarships? I don't know, but I'm going to keep playing this.
Delaware State University started out as the State College for Colored Students. Its first classroom was a former plantation house. Fast forward to 2016, and this is their women's tennis team. University President Dr. Williams says non-Black students have always been welcome.
HBCUs are the only higher education institution that did not put any discrimination standards in the door to say you can't get in.
But now diversity is a matter of survival. These schools need bodies.
A quarter of the residents here are African Americans, and to think that that population could sustain a historically Black institution is just not realistic.
Despite their original purpose, today only 8% of Black college students go to HBCUs. Some HBCUs have financial incentives from the state to meet diversity quotas, and demographic shifts have turned others majority white. Does diversity ultimately affect the stated mission of an HBCU?
Sometimes people think that because you have white people on your campus that you got to change. You don't have to change. Don't run away from your heritage. Why do we have in our mission statement that it's a Black institution? Because that's part of our history. That's what we stand for.
So what does a non-Black student get from an HBCU that they wouldn't get from a predominantly white school?
It's a different atmosphere to be a majority to a minority. My high school only had like 2 African-American kids, and I could see like maybe what they go through. I mean, I wish I talked to them a little bit more now.
I haven't like met many Black tennis players. I went to like a predominantly white high school.
It's definitely given me the opportunity to see it from the other side. It's opened my eye to different types of racism.
So how do you unstereotype historically Black schools?
For as much as the nation says that we like diversity, why does the burden of diversity fall on the ethnic minority? Why doesn't the resources and the human capital find their way to historically Black colleges? Why don't white folks find their way to historically Black communities? I think diversity in its truest form is the ability for people to go into an underserved or underrepresented population and learn.
I think the world would be a better place if more people would open themselves up to just step out of their norm, you know, just open themselves up to the world that's out there.
In order to achieve success, in order to contribute to the world, you have to bring a different perspective. It's very difficult to bring a different perspective if you have not had different experiences from those around you.
Our lineage is clear. Our kinship is clear. I am proud to be your brother.
Okay. He is proud to be your brother. Go ahead, make your comment, because I know you have one.
What is his name again?
I don't know. I didn't catch it. I'll have to go back and
He
check.
didn't say he didn't say anything. Obviously, the video later when they interview him, he had graduated, but I didn't hear him say anything about the experience that he went through, made him want to do this or that for the Black community. I didn't hear any of that. I'm like, okay, what was your point of going there?
Okay, so what about that one guy who said that it changed his perspective in terms of racism? Do you think that, you know, for some white people, their point of going there is because they can see how the other half lives, so to speak?
They'll never understand because they're not Black. You don't have to go to a predominantly Black school. And obviously the one girl said that she had never been, I think the guy too said they had never been around Black people because they went to predominantly white high schools. I think the one guy said he was around, there were two people that were Black that went to his whole school. You don't have to go to a historically Black university to have a friend who's Black to understand what they go through, or at least try to hear. You won't ever understand because you're white, but you don't have to go to the school to try to vicariously see, oh, this is what Black people go through. You don't have to do that. If you knew someone that's Black that you were friends with, their story should be enough for you to know. But I don't think you need to go there. And then if you do go there, just because you know that racism exists, what are you going to do about it? How are you going to make things better?
So I just want to be clear. So is one of your hangups the fact that they're not going back into the community to help Black people? Is that one of the things that if you're going to go to a Black school, that you should also give back to?
Yeah, I think that if you're going to go to the school and you claim that now you understand, well, what are you going to do for the Black community that paid for your education to be there? What is your way? What are you going to do to give back for the university that paid for you to be there as
Okay,
a
now,
white person?
okay, but you're also assuming that all white people who go to Black schools, that their tuition is being paid for by the school. What if, I couldn't get a scholarship, but I do have to, my parents do have to pay, or I have to, go on work study or get a loan or something. Do you still think that as a white person that it is my responsibility to have to give back?
Even if you did get a loan, which I doubt very seriously, if they actually paid to go to a Black school when they could have gone to a white school. You heard some of them on the video say ghetto when they asked what you think about a Black school. They said ghetto, or some other derogatory adjectives I can't remember. But ghetto was one of them. I think another one was low quality or something.
Yeah.
Not equally standard. So for those reasons, I can't see a white student actually paying to go to a Black school if a lot of white students believe what some of those students were saying. I think that, and I could be wrong, I don't have any statistics, but if a white student is at a Black school, I'm pretty sure it's because they got a scholarship to go there. I don't think they would actually pay out of their pocket to attend a Black college.
Okay, let me ask one more point that to me really stuck out in this last video. Why do you think, you have a tennis team, there were what, 2 Black students who were on the tennis team and the rest were white. Why do you think more Black students don't go out for the tennis team?
That's a good question. I also know that there are some Black colleges where there's several white men on the baseball teams. I've seen that. I was actually one day watching, just flipping channels, and saw a white baseball player up at the bat, and it was a Black school. And so I looked up the school. I'm like, wow. And when I looked up the school, a lot of the players were on scholarships and they were white.
Okay, so again, I ask you, why aren't, Black students, going for those sports scholarships for baseball, for tennis, what have you? I mean, when you think about it, a lot of Black people never even knew that a Black person could be a tennis player until they saw Wilma Rudolph or Arthur Ashe, but we tend not to go out for those scholarships or sports, not necessarily in college, but in high school too. And those are probably easier to get scholarships from if you were a Black person who was good and you stood out, and if you wanted to go on and you could possibly get a scholarship to one of those schools. So again, I'm just playing both sides here. I'm just playing both sides, but I do believe that we as a people, many times we do ourselves a disservice, and we do need to take advantage of things that are out there for us. If I see that, I look at the tennis team and I see that the tennis team is all white, I'm going to join, not only because so I can be the only Black person at an all Black school, but I'm going to join so I can stand out. So maybe I can get something, maybe, how is it going to benefit you? You always have to think about ways that whatever you do towards your education, how is it going to benefit you? Because ultimately your education, what you know, who you know, of course, is going to benefit you once you leave school and you go out into the corporate world. Does that make sense?
Definitely.
So, and again, just, at the telecommunications company, that we worked at, it's I still just, kind of shake my head, how people that I knew who worked there, and they worked in the same support positions for years and years and years and years and years in the same spot, never moving up. Meanwhile, these white people just kept moving up over and over and over and over and over. And I would say, why don't you go and post for something else? Well, I don't know. I'm like, sometimes you have to create your own opportunity.
Yeah.
But this was an interesting show. This, and I appreciate the feedback from both of my friends, even my silent one. But you know that I love you, but no, but these are the kind of shows, that I want, even though Shy Lady, I agree with you 100%. I'm always going to try to show, the other side. What about this? What about that? And this is the type of show where I wish I did have a couple of white people on, so they can put their, 2 cents in, because I always want to hear what someone else has to say. So, maybe as, the show gets, grows and, more people participate, whatever, we can revisit this, but I do have a lot of other subjects that I want to tackle, that you may agree with me, you may not, but I am all about bringing up stuff that other people do not want to talk about. So, but again, my time is up, and I appreciate you guys so much, and I want you to have a wonderful weekend. I am Solid Blue Sister. All right, guys. Bye.
Bye. Bye.